Hello and very good morning to all of you. Again, welcome to this Distinguished Psychologist Sunday Psychologist series. So far, we have discussed about Kishore Phadke sir and Elizabeth Lofts. Now, in this third session of this series, today we are going to discuss about another Indian psychologist, a psychologist who is considered as a founder of experimental psychology lab and psychology department of University of Pune. Nonetheless, he is respected V.K. Kothurkar sir, that is Vasudev Krishna Kothurkar. He is a Maharashtrian. He was born on 2nd March 1912 in a very small village named Kothure, Nasik. Further, after completing his basic education, he started his work as a tutor at Fergusson College, one of the reputed college in Maharashtra. In 1936, Kothurkar sir, he has done his masters in philosophy, including psychology, because at that time, psychology and philosophy, they were considered as together subjects only. At that time, he stood first. He achieved first rank in whole of the Bombay Presidency. Further, in 1940, he earned another his master's degree from St. Catherine College, University of Cambridge from UK. त्या काळात सुद्धा इथून अब्रॉडला जाऊन एज्युकेशन कंप्लीट करणं इट वॉज नॉट एन इझी टास्क. There, he worked with another senior psychologist at Cambridge Psychological Lab and with reference to war research. Of course, as you can see, it was a Second World War time period. After returning to India in 1941, he started teaching psychology subject at Tilak College of Education in Pune, where he started first experimental psychology lab in Maharashtra. तोपर्यंत स्पेशली महाराष्ट्रामध्ये सायकोलॉजीची कुठलीही लॅब एज सच अशी नव्हती. इव्हन डिपार्टमेंट वॉज ऑल्सो नॉट देअर टिल दॅट टाइम. During 1943 to 47, then he shifted. He was transferred to Elphinstone College, Bombay, as a gazetted officer, where he taught to undergraduate and postgraduate students. Then again, he transferred to Dharwad city in Karnataka, which is near to Kolhapur, where he worked during 1947 to 50. Of course, this work itself, it is a very remarkable and a milestone for his career span as such, as we can see. But his real career, it was started in 1950, where he started his work as a reader and HOD, head of the Department of Experimental Psychology in University of Pune, as now which we call SPPU, Savitribai Phule Pune University, but earlier it was called as University of Pune. So till that day, as I said, that there was no separate department for psychology. It was a part of philosophy department only. But it was he, a Kothurkar sir, who took initiate and started teaching and research facilities step by step. And how exactly he started? By setting up the department from scratch. अक्षरशः काही नव्हतं, तिथून त्यांनी सुरुवात केली. from scratch to developing the strength of PG department from 1 student to 38. From 1950 it was 0, and in 1962 so there were 38 students used to enroll for PG. So his work, it include the preparation, institutional setting up and everything, implementation of full 8-paper course for MA Psychology, framing and implementing BA Psychology special courses. The structure which we now have, it was deeply rooted on the minute work of Kothurkar sir only. It was his credit that he started BSc Psychology subsidiary experimental psychology course. You can see the vast and the span or the scope of his work. Plus, not only in teaching but even in administrative work also, the way he guided, it was most important. Of his routine to the wider considerations of policy, planning, strategy, teaching and even research in psychology. He guided each and everything. Plus, in 1962, he started animal and neurophysiological experiments in the University of Pune only. Plus department मध्ये किती काय काय होतं ना. Plus, now the way he started and the way he developed experimental psychology lab, one of the member of Triennial Inspection Committee at that time in 1956, he said that this lab is one of the best lab in India I have ever seen. Further, Charles Osgood on his visit, he said that I do want to tell you how much I enjoy the opportunity to tour your lab in experimental psychology. The best lab in experimental psychology we saw during our travels in the Far and Middle East, and I mean just that. The third person, Fisher of Rutgers University in 1962, he has also appreciated by saying that this lab is one of the best in India. Your department and equipment is something to be proud of not only in India but anywhere. In 1940, he went to UK. He studied over there, but that study, it was not superficial, but that minute observation, everything, it was reflected in his work in University of Pune Experimental Psychology Lab. But his struggle, it continued further also, because till 1970 there was issue or problem also, we can say that there was not independent status of psychology. Even in India, psychology was considered as a part of philosophy only. But it was Kothurkar sir along with V.K.Kothurkar sir and even P.A. Bhagwatwar sir. These three eminent personalities, they took initiate, they struggled a lot and they approached to philosophy department and they convinced. Even at that time, the HOD of philosophy department, they also realized that social psychology, industrial psychology, research and even many other subfields of psychology, they have actually no relation with philosophy as such. So even the HOD at that time, they also agreed that yes, psychology should be separated from philosophy department, and the result was in 1972 in University of Pune, psychology subject got its independent status, and further, not only University of Pune department but even affiliated colleges also, they have started special psychology courses and other activities. Now let's see about awards and recognition which was received by Dr. Kothurkar sir. In 1951, Government of India along with UNESCO Tension Project, the first award it was received at that time. Second, at that time, Kothurkar sir received rupees 10,000 funding from UGC grant for an advanced school in experimental psychology project. He also represented university in 1951. Further, in 1958, Kothurkar sir was invited by Gordon Allport, G.W. Allport as we know, at Harvard University. We must proud for him that the person he was invited by Allport and that too at Harvard University. Also, he was invited nominee to visit British universities with reference to psychology and even other educational reforms with reference to India in 1959. Next, he worked as a president in section on education and psychology at Indian Science Congress at Banaras in 1968. He was also deputed by Government of India in Romania to visit Department of Psychology in 1970. And last but not the least, he was a founder of President Indian Association of Human Behavior in 1992. He was not only academician but even a scholar. Why scholar? Because Gardner Murphy, a well-known, very famous American psychologist, he recognized Kothurkar sir's work in the words by saying, "I found you to be one of the best trained, best informed, most creative and most effective in both teaching and research among all the psychologists in India whom I met. Starting from scratch, you have developed almost single-handedly one of the finest departments of psychology in India." So Kothurkar sir's work, it has been added and got appreciation in the book written by Murphy. His work was an experimental study of modification of social attitudes. इंडियन सायकोलॉजिस्ट से रिकॉग्निशन किंवा दखल अमेरिकन सायकोलॉजिस्टने घेणं इट इज नॉट an easy task. And by that time, so Kothurkar sir, he was approached, he had been approached by UP government. He offered a professorship, but he declined. UPच्या गव्हर्नमेंट कडून ऑफर आली होती त्यांना की तुम्ही आमच्याकडे प्रोफेसर म्हणून जॉईन व्हाल का. सो he declined this offer and everything it was noticed, it was came to know by Mr. Jaikar sir, who was the first vice chancellor at that time in University of Pune, and he also appreciated this and he said that the same thing you are due in here University of Pune, how can we ignore you and your enormous work. तीच प्रोफेसरशिप ही त्यांना पुण्यामध्ये सुद्धा ही मिळाली. जयकर सरांच्याच नावाने व पुढे जयकर लायब्ररी ही पुढे मग एक एक करून अस्तित्वात आली. नाउ furthermore, Kothurkar sir has guided 16 students for their PhD work. Now we are going to see some of them. The first one was V.V.Kothurkar, also called as Appa, and he was the one who started Jnana Prabodhini Institute for Psychology. This particular institute, it works for specially gifted children. म्हणजे ज्याला आपण IQ above 40 as we can say. So JPIP Institute for this particular group. Second one was Anand Paranspe sir, who work as the emerita professor at Canada. The third one was V.P. Sharma, who worked in educational psychology at Raipur. Shamala Banarse and even Sudhir Banarse sir. These two students were guided by, of course, Kothurkar sir. Many a times I heard this reference from respected Badguzar sir at that time, that how Banarse sir used to teach them REBT and even other industrial psychology subjects. Usha Tai Khaire was also associated with JPIP. Further, she also worked in intelligence, even Guilford's theory, model of intelligence. And last but not the least, another respected sir, C.G. Deshpande, who was also a student of Kothurkar sir. In our upcoming session, we are also going to throw some light on C.J. Deshpande sir as a distinguished psychologist. So you can see the way he guided, that itself reflects a lot. Research. Research is not something for him which can be considered as only for the sake of degree, but for him, research should be something with having social relevance and even practical application. At that time, he studied psychological survey of Kolhapur community project, which was funded by Planning Commission, Government of India at that time. He also studied with the Department of Politics, a village leadership in the Gram Panchayats. The same thing was funded by Planning Commission, Government of India. And also he studied group relations, social psychology, with reference to a diversified areas like attitude towards minority community, Hindu-Harijan relations, caste feelings, the problems of Navabuddhas, and even the provincial stereotypes. You can see that all these topics, they were burning issues at that time. हे पार्टिशनच्या वेळेस ह्या सगळ्या टॉपिक्सला एक वेगळा इम्पॉर्टन्स होता. And he studied at all these things in detail. He studied and published more than 50 research papers in Indian and even in abroad journals. All these are the selected list of those journals from Indian journals and even abroad journals. Oriental Thought, Psychological Studies, Kannada Encyclopedia, American Journal of Psychology, British Journal of Psychology, and likewise. He also written more than 11 books. Some of them was like Learning Memory, आठवण साठवण, एक महान मानस शास्त्रज्ञ B.F. Skinner, and of course मानस शास्त्राची मूल तत्वे. These 3 books are in Marathi. And not only this, but even Kothurkar sir has also written some important projects, like in 1959, a report of the Committee on the Indian Examinations Reform Project. Second one was 1960, a statistical analysis of the failures at the pre-degree examination of the Pune University. 62, he worked on psychological survey of the secondary school children of Pune, and 69, a report on health and level of living in Kolhapur community project, which we have just discussed. Last but not the least, In 73, he worked on abstract of research papers, experimental psychology in India, which was published by ICSSR, Indian Council of Social Science Research, New Delhi. You can see so much of work has done by this eminent psychologist, eminent and even distinguished psychologist. Furthermore, he was also referred as God man in psychology by Heman Mukherjee sir at that time. All these references with more detail you can get in Eminent Indian Psychologist, a book written by Braj Bhushan sir from IT, Kanpur. I hope you have enjoyed and you must have learned a lot about Kothurkar sir. As a psychology student, it is not only a motivating part for us but even a healthy responsibility that how much and what can be done in this field. In next Sunday, we are going to study and discuss about another distinguished and eminent psychologist. Till then, thank you so much and I hope you have enjoyed a lot. Thank you. Take care.